On this episode of The Journey, today's episode, we had a podcast on a couple of weeks, I don't know, maybe a month ago, where Bridger Petrini had got attacked by a bear. And that podcast came out while I was in Maine. And when we were in Maine, you know, in the evenings and stuff, we were sitting around and watching YouTube TV and whatever. And we got to watching extreme rescues. So it kind of brought this subject up, and I thought it would be very important to maybe discuss this because a lot of us guys are in the backcountry. I know you guys out west are way out of touch with people and civilization where you guys hunt. You know, for me here on the East Coast, it's not so bad, but I still could be several miles from a road or a trailhead or something in some of the places that I hunt. So I'm going to have on today a good friend. It's Chad McCoy, and he was a Chief Master Sergeant in the military. And Chad and I met through Freedom Hunters. We brought Chad up and done a hunt with him, and he come back again for another hunt, and we become friends. We keep in touch, and it's just some of those relationships you build. But this was Chad's job in the military, is, you know, pararescue. I'll let him talk about that, but we'll talk about the hunt in a little bit. But Chad, how's everything down on the? You're not on the coast, but hot down in Florida, isn't it?
Oh, it's brutal, man. Only rescue we need down here is cold water and some shade. But yeah, life's good down here in Florida.
So give the listener, and you've been on the podcast with us before. I know you were on when we actually did the hunt. Just give us a little background for you and set it up so that the guys understand what your experience and expertise is, because it is, it's very high expertise in your field.
Yeah, so not a lot of people know about pararescue. Pararescue started, it started in the Korean War, but got its really cut its teeth in Vietnam. So guys would go down the hoist into enemy fire and pull people out. They were doing this, all the time. Just, you know, kind of living the motto of that others may live. So putting yourself out there so others can come home. And you know, over the past few decades, pararescue's evolved. In the past 20 years, pararescue really served a function to rescue, you know, downed pilots in the early days. But then when the War on Terror happened, pararescue was kind of everywhere, all over the theaters, you know, responding to any kind of crisis that happened. So PJs either are with helicopters or airplanes. They jump out of the airplane, parachute down, or, you know, hoist down out of a helicopter, or they're attached to another soft team. So, you know, a team of SEALs or special forces guys, and that PJ is there to do all the rescue and recovery. And so think about having, you know, kind of 911 attached to your team. So the mission sets kind of span the whole gamut. So there's really no mission that a PJ can't respond to. And that's not an exaggeration. I mean, they rescue guys off the side of Mount McKinley, you know, glacier rescue. They'll parachute into the middle of the ocean, rescue, you know, somebody off a ship. And then the combat side, you know, a house explodes, crushes somebody. They lift the house up and get them out. A car gets blown up, it's upside down. They cut through the car and get them out. There really isn't a mission space that pararescue hasn't trained to be proficient at and candidly, you know, be an expert at. And so it takes years to make a PJ. It takes a few years of training. You know, everyone likes to say that their selection's the toughest. I don't really care who's the toughest. Ours is good. It gets good guys in the door. And then, you know, we spend years to make them proficient in all these skills. So rope rescue, medicine, parachuting, diving, you know, you name it, they've got it in their repertoire. And so, yeah, they are the DoD's dedicated rescue and recovery force. It's the only group within the entire military that's dedicated mission is rescue. And so a lot of guys will say, well, Marines, you know, do trap teams and rescue, you know, you guys are down. They do it as an additional duty. PJs do it as their primary job. So the only ones just dedicated, focused on planning and recovery and execution. So, that was my life in a nutshell. I did that for about 23 years, retired a few years ago. And now I'm just a dirty civilian talking about experiences that half of them are probably lies anyway. So.
Yeah, and I know that you and I we're planning a fishing trip for this spring. We'll go get you up here and get out on the river a little bit. So
Can't fall in the water this time.
Well, at least you can save us if we do. So let's talk about that. Just recap your hunt real quick with us. I know that you come up for the early season, and kudos to you, Chad. And this says a whole lot about you. How many bear did we tree? 8 or 9? It was a bunch.
Yeah, it was a bunch. Yeah.
We had the one big bear on the ground, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the first morning, the first bear we treed, it was probably 100, 130, somewhere in that area. It was a smaller bear, and you chose not to take it. You wanted to take an actual trophy, and you passed up on several bears throughout those 3 days. And then on the last day, we had that one on the ground you was talking about falling in the water. Maddie talks about that all the time. Like, when I come up out of there, I look like a wet Sasquatch. We went down in this nightmare of a place that we hunt, and the bear just kept going in and out of the creek and in and out of the creek and over ledges and in and out of the creek. And I took a ton, I fell hard. I lost my Garmin and my phone, my radio, everything that was in my hand. And the only reason I found any of it is because I had that orange cover on my Garmin. And when the water cleared, I could see the orange enough to reach down there. When I reached down there, I felt my radio and my phone. So, yeah, that was one of the tumbles, because I think you fell in too, didn't you?
Oh, I went all the way under.
Yeah. I mean, it took my breath.
I had that Marlin 4570 with no sling on it. And if Marlin's listening, they need to send me any rifle. That rifle's a piece of junk. But I didn't have a sling on it, so when I fell underwater, I was trying to keep it out of the water with my arm up. But that water's so cold, man. And I was in jeans and a t-shirt like an idiot. But
take your breath.
Yeah. Hard lessons.
Yeah, so just tell what your experience, because I mean, you're not a hound hunter. What was your experience like? What did you like? What did you dislike? What did you take away from it?
Man, I love spending time with you and your buddies out there. I mean, you got a good group of people out there, and it's nice to be with locals that know where everything's at. It's nice to be with good people that care about each other. You guys have a really good group of people. The hound stuff was all new to me. I don't even know if I've been around a hound before. And beautiful dogs, really, really cool setup, man. A lot more technical than I thought. The navigation portion of it, the technology you guys are integrating, it's really a professional process. For me, man, I think it's pretty cool that you guys can go up there and tree bears, not take any bears, come back. I know you guys are all outdoorsmen. You guys all care about the wildlife. I'm an animal lover, so I'm not out there to slay a bunch of critters. But I think it's pretty cool. You guys are use good judgment, but also are doing a good thing for the population out there. Culling those bears that need to be. Because down here in Florida, we have a black bear problem, but it's a felony to shoot a black bear. And I think I told you, I texted you the picture.
You sent me the video. Yeah.
Yeah, I had one kill my chicken in my backyard, and I couldn't do anything about it. So I hit him in the head with a brick. And I was hoping he'd charge me because I'd shoot him, because I had my suppressed 5.56 with me. But I was like, at least if he scratches me a little bit, I'll justify shooting him. But I got 300 blackout now, so I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. Then you come back in December for a couple days, and we was able to harvest you a really nice boar bear. And you did not have that 4570, did you?
No, I did. I shot him with that.
Is that what you shot him with?
A couple times. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we was able to harvest a nice bear. It was a great experience, and I love to introduce people into our world that are interested and want to learn or want to see what it is. And it was just a great experience for us, to have you up here and to have you along with us, and you to come back because we weren't able to take one in the early season that was a good bear. That says a whole lot. That, like I said, you're not out there just to do whatever. So, man, we enjoyed it. And again, like I said, it started a relationship. We're over 3 years now, and we keep up here and there, and I'm just appreciative of the friendship for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I look forward to keeping it going, man. We got to get some better stories. So maybe we get you down here to Florida, go kill some alligators or something.
Well, no, I'm not opposed. I like to eat alligator. I do like gator. They're pretty good. You
can fry anything, right?
Yeah, that's right. So, Chad, this, like I said, we were in Maine, and this come up, and you were the first person I thought of. Some of the stories that you told us, and some of the rescue missions that you've been on, which I will not mention. I'm like, who would be better to talk about this? So, we all hunt in areas that are not easily accessible. Not all the time. And we're lucky sometimes when we tree right beside the road or whatever. And some of us, if you guys are listening, if you're like me, like I like to slide off by myself sometimes and hunt by myself, and that's very not safe. It's not. What happens if I step down in a rock bar and snap a leg, or, fall? I was on a cliff last year and ended up taking a bear. I was on the side of a cliff on a ledge, and that could have went really, really, really bad for me. And I have been in other tight circumstances throughout my hunting career, not just bear hunting. Deer hunting and turkey hunting. I've been in, some sticky situations before. So I thought about, I thought about you, and maybe we can run down some scenarios and talk about, some first aid, some things that we can do to prepare ourselves. When you talk about our group, there's one thing that's unique about the guys that I hunt with. Of course, in my profession, I have to be certified in first aid and CPR, which basic first aid. Okay, it's nothing beyond that I can take care of a lot of stuff, but not to the extent that you did. Forrest hunts with us. He's on the fire department. He's again, first aid, CPR. And then we have Fuzz, who's a deputy, first aid, CPR. Wesley was a hose dragger too, first aid, CPR. And then we hunt, Garrett's with us, and he's a veterinarian. Like, I would trust him to do some things to me if he needed to. So our group is unique because we have several guys, a handful of guys that if something went south, we could get by for a short amount of time at the minimum. One of the things that I started doing last year that I hadn't done before, but it was after a conversation Chris and I had, is I've got tourniquets laying everywhere from my job. So on the bottom of my chest rig this year, actually I did it last year, but on the bottom of my chest rig, I've got a tourniquet, on my chest rig. And it's, we can use a belt, shoelaces, whatever, absolutely. But I had several laying around, so I just put it in there. So I'm just going to hand it over to you. Like, what are some things that we should, if we're capable of carrying? You see how we travel. We travel pretty light. Sometimes some of the guys use backpacks. Like I said, I'm a minimalist. I just wear a chest rig and that's it. I don't like a big bulky stuff on me, so I travel as light as I can. So, yeah, I'm going to leave it to you. You're the professional. I want to learn from you.
Yeah, so I think you can approach it a couple different ways. One's the planning aspect of what you guys are going and doing. And so, maybe before the season starts, you got, people you're hunting with, you guys sit down and, what's going to be in what truck, right? So, having a litter for mobility is really important. They're really hard to make in the field when you need one. And so that could either be a poleless litter, something to drag someone on. It could be like you're dragging a deer in the woods or an elk. But some material that's durable enough for you to drag someone on the ground. The next one's, if you wanted to have a pole litter, if you want to invest in that, it's probably a worthy investment if this is your, this is your big hobby. But whose truck's it going to be in? Who's going to be responsive? Who do we call? And setting those roles and responsibilities up early. And so, and then when everybody's carrying, if you got a good hunting crew that you're going to go out with every season, and you guys want to professionalize it, maybe you make it a standard, kind of like the military does. And hey, man, we're going to carry this as a first line piece of equipment. Everyone's going to have a tourniquet. Everyone's going to have, maybe it's a signaling device. If there's no cell phone, communication, maybe it's something they can signal with, and maybe a really, really small fire starting kit, because you guys hunt up there when it gets kind of cold at night, and maybe a space blanket or something like that. But keeping it light, but keeping it packed up and cheap enough that everyone can buy and put on their kit. And then, holding everybody accountable. Hey, man, if you're going to hunt with us, you got to play ball, because they might be treating you or you might be treating them. And so, and then you're also coming up on other people that aren't in your crew that you got to take care of potentially. And so I think planning is the first piece that I'd bring up. And whatever your plan is, as long as everybody knows it, you guys are way better prepared than everybody else. In the military, we overplan things. I guess we don't overplan. We plan really well, and we plan exhaustively. And so if we're going to go do an operation in a certain area, me as the PJ, I know, hey, we're not going to be able to get helicopters in here. So I know I need to be able to move them by the ground. If I don't have vehicles, how far can I drag these guys? And you said, you're working with big boys. The guys I work with are, big boys too, in full kit, 300 pounds. I'm not moving them on my own very far. So, you're talking through all that stuff. And, I look at it like a military op. So you'd have somebody carries a litter, so that might be in a vehicle. Maybe it's something you dump out at a kind of like a rally point. Maybe you establish that. You guys can all share your positions, because now you know where your dogs are. So pushing out a position, it's a rally point. Like my circumstance out there, I didn't know where I was when I went down to the creek and I was in the water.
Mm-hmm.
But if you guys say, hey man, if you go to the far southern edge of that river, that's gonna be a rally point. So if we don't see you, we're gonna meet you down there. Just establishing those things. Some of the areas don't really matter because you guys know those woods like the back of your hand. But maybe if you're hunting a new spot. Second thing is, I think, kit. And so, I think tourniquets are important, but I think out there you're probably more likely to break a bone, like a long bone, be immobilized, not be able to move your buddy, not be able to move yourself. And if you ever broke a femur or a long bone in your leg, splinting it is the most important thing you can do. A lot of things you can splint with. You can splint with your rifle, obviously, unloaded, strapped around, going in your crotch.
Glad you said that.
Strap it to your good leg, legs together, and then that keeps them somewhat mobilized. A lot of times if you lose pulse in a limb because you broke it so badly, you have to straighten it out. That's the only time you really, manipulate a limb.
Mm-hmm.
If it's angled 90 degrees, but you still got a pulse in the bottom of your foot, you don't need to mess with it. A lot of times when you move those long bones, you can do more damage. And so I know it's kind of gross to splint a leg when it's at 90 degrees, but if they got a pulse on it, don't mess with it, man. But splinting long bones is hard. So, but when you're out in the woods, if you got the ability to cut down some good green wood and splint those things up, and then make a litter, you can make a litter by 2 long pieces of wood with a jacket, a couple jackets in the middle. That usually carries somebody out. But I think litter making is probably, and mobility is the most important thing you guys got to face in your terrain. I don't think it applies to everybody's, but yeah, I think long bones are a big one. And then if everyone's safe with their firearms, shouldn't have too many problems. But you got guns firing in the woods, I mean, there's always the chance somebody's going to get hit.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really where tourniquets are important.
And not like gutting a bear. Trying to gut an animal and you slip and you cut your
sure.
And would you, real quick, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, would you just go back and explain what a litter is, like, so everybody understands what that is visually?
Yeah, so I mean, a litter is just something you can use to carry a body, right? So, there's prefabricated litters that have basically 2 long poles, so 4 handles that can be carried by 2 people or 4 people. A lot of times, if you have, like, we use a thing called a skedco, and a skedco is just a hard piece of plastic that's got some rigging on it, and it's got multiple hand holds on it. You can buy sked coats. They're really expensive. I think they're like $500-600. But really, there isn't anything better for your terrain as a sked coat, because you can drag it with one person. And so if you got hurt, both your legs are broken, I'll put you in the sked coat. I rig you up real nice and tight, and I'll kind of go into also padding and hypothermia prevention. And those things should be in that litter as well. But I could drag you myself up and down the side of a mountain in the sked coat. I mean, if you're really getting serious and you really want to protect yourself, I think that's a good investment. You might be able to buy them used on eBay. The other side of things are, if you can find some really durable, hard plastic or hard material, you could probably make your own. Just something to drag somebody out. Maybe it's a one-time use. But that's a litter. And so there's different types. There's a couple books. There's one book called Freeing of the Hills, and it's about mountain rescue. But inside that book, they talk about how to make field expedient litter. So you got a rope and you got some long sticks. You can make a nice litter, but man, for being in the States, it's mostly just getting them out of there, getting them to a hospital. And so, if it's a broken leg, yeah, you're going to suck it up. We're going to drag you over. It's going to hurt. If they're really bad and it's a broken back, that's when you need to spend the time to make the litter. So, and a lot of times, if it's a long bone in the leg, I mean, you could throw them over your back too and carry them, depending on how much pain they're in and how well you splint it. But if it's a broken back or a broken neck, yeah, you got to take the time to make the litter. So.
I got you. Yeah, and I mean, you and I were talking about it just a little while ago. There's some places that I hunt, and you've been in a couple of them, that no matter which direction you go, it's 4 miles, and you can't land a bird there. You can't get a four-wheeler into most of those places. You're going to have to be carried to an access point somehow, some way, and it's not. I don't care which way you're going. You're going to pull up some point in time. There's just no other way around it. So getting somebody out would be even if rescue, and that's another thing. If in some of these areas it's mostly volunteer, that's not even paid, and these guys are working and have jobs, and I mean, it could be a 6 or 8 hour, 10 hour, adventure for that to happen.
Well, yeah, I think the other piece is pain medication, right? You say time. When you say time, I think pain. And, when you don't have narcotics to give somebody, what can you do in place of that? And I will tell you that high-dose Tylenol does a lot for pain. You can carry it over the counter. I would carry it on my body in a waterproof little baggie. And don't quote me on the dosages, because you probably, depending on what your medical situation is, and you talk to your doctor, but usually high doses of Tylenol do pretty darn well for most injuries. And so what we would do is, we would combine drugs together, because a lot of them have what they call potentiation, like they work really well together. And we would also dose them with antibiotics early. So if it's a long bone break, or let's say one of your guys is punctured by a branch in the abdomen, like if you're on the field for 10 hours, that's going to get infected, and you're going to be sepsis by the time you get to the hospital. So, there's broad spectrum antibiotics you can carry. The problem is being, unless you're a paramedic or an EMT, are you going to be administering that to your friends, potentially. But I think there's a lot you can do. There's a book that I love. It's called Ditch Medicine. It's on Amazon, I'm sure, eBay, whatever. But Ditch Medicine talks about all the things you can do without having a hospital, without having really high-level medical training, and to sit on a patient for a long time in the woods. And the book quotes a lot of stuff from out of Southeast Asia, during Vietnam. And so, like, how do you pack a wound with gauze and honey and have the honey draw out the infection through osmosis? It talks about splinting, all this basic stuff. And so you don't need to be a medic to read that book and really get a lot out of it. But back to the pain management stuff, if you splint, you reduce pain, right? Because every time you move bones together, it creates pain. So splinting's first, but then getting some medicine on board. So making sure no one's allergic before you go out there. Goes back to planning. At your crew of 10 guys that are out there, any of them allergic to any medications. If you know that going into it, you can dose them up with a lot of Tylenol, some antibiotics, and potentially really give them good care as you transport them out. The only other thing I was thinking when you were talking about movement is your guys' trucks all have kennels in the back, and I don't know if you guys even have a truck that's empty in the back to move somebody through. Because if their back's broken, you're not putting them in the back of your truck. You're going to put them in the bed. Can you remove the kennels? Can you get them out of there? Come back for them? So that's all. All goes into planning to me. But I'll stop yapping for a second.
No, I think you're hitting on some really good topics. I would hope that if we could get somebody to access points or trailheads, then rescue should be there to be able to do that transport. But I'm also would not be opposed to driving my truck down through the middle of the woods to get somebody out for 200, 300 yards either if I needed to. So that's something else. So how important, Chad, like let's say that I stepped over in a rock bar and I snapped my leg. Which could happen. I mean, we've done it on canine tracks. We've had 2 canine handlers break their legs on canine tracks at night. Again, rescue's on standby. They're immediately available. It's really not a big issue other than they're going to be out of work for 6 to 8 weeks, right? So if let's say that I step down in a rock bar and I snap my leg, and then I radio. If I'm able to get to my radio, because my radio does strap on me and it's tethered to me, so I can't lose it. It's always attached to me, and I've done that too. How important is it for me to actually start moving them until maybe a paramedic or something can get to them? Because that could be, again, in some of the places that I hunt, I mean, it may take them 2 hours to hike in, and that's at a good hike. To hike into me. That's after I fail. I've contacted somebody to make a phone call, which they're probably going to have to be in phone service. I may not be. So let's just say we're looking at a 4-hour window here somewhere in that area. The Journey on Houndsman XP has teamed up with One TDC. This dual action support for oral health and mobility in our dogs. This unique supplement is so effective that it is recommended by top veterinarian experts worldwide to maintain and improve our dog's health in 4 different areas. Their oral health, hips, joints, and muscles, skin, coat, energy, and recovery. Guys, I've been using this product for the last 6 months, and it has been a game changer for me. If you're looking for something to help with the overall health of your dog, go to worksowell.com and give this product a try. It is highly recommended by Houndsman XP here on The Journey.
It's completely circumstance dependent, right? I mean, do you need advanced medical care to move them? Mm-hmm. If you know which bone it is, I mean, femurs are really dangerous bones to break. I mean, if you break a femur, you've had a significant mechanism of injury to break it, right? So significant fall, significant impact, and that bone has a lot of bleeding internally, right? It produces red blood cells, and that's a really painful bone. The tib fib, you can have problems with tib fib, compartment syndrome, bleeding inside the cavity. But for the most part, especially if you break a fibula, like you can survive. You're going to survive. Small bone. But what I would say is more important in that scenario is exposure, and so. Treating for exposure early, what we don't give credit to a lot of times, and even in the summertime up there, it gets cold at night, especially if you're sweaty, wind starts blowing, maybe they're not dressed appropriately. That'll catch up with you, and it's insidious, right? So if you start getting cold, it's really hard to warm them back up. And if they have any kind of like multi-trauma in their body, their body's already fighting to kind of take care of everything else. And so hypothermia just exacerbates all the other stuff you got to worry about. And so, when I come up on somebody, the first thing I'm thinking, obviously the injury, kind of looking at the scenario, is it safe? Is there rocks above us that are going to fall on us? Do I need to move them just for safety? Are they wet? Do I need to get them a dry area? But then it's how do I, get the wet clothes off, get dry clothes on them, and then wrap them up and bundle them and let them preserve all that heat. Because it might be a long night, right? Mm-hmm. We might not be able to move them at all. And those paramedics that come out there might not find us till the morning. And so it would really suck to have a broken leg and then die from hypothermia. So that's where a space blanket comes in real handy. They're super small. They're dirt cheap. Yep. You get that thing out, get a bunch of pine straw, put a bunch of pine straw underneath their butt and their back, so you're basically not losing heat from transfer on the ground. Mm-hmm. Kind of build them to a little nest, get that space blanket around them. But you need to be thinking, am I going to move them? So if you are going to move them, don't make them perfect in a cocoon before you set up the litter to move them, right? Mm-hmm. So what happens a lot of times, you're like, okay, we'll get them, get them all tucked in, they're warm, and then we build a litter, and now we got to move them again. And so, it kind of goes into planning. We want to make our movements as minimal as we can. We want to think through everything. And another thing I'll bring up is a lot of times, kind of like many cooks in the kitchen, kind of makes things more difficult sometimes. If someone's got training like you, Heath, maybe you're not so involved in the packing and building the litter. Maybe you're stepping back and watching the scenario. You're looking at what needs to be done and kind of directing. Mm-hmm. It sounds like you're not working as hard, but that position is really essential. Because if everyone's heads down, a lot of times you miss things around you. What's an environmental condition? What's the sun doing? How much time we got? Who's called somebody? Do they have another injury that we didn't even notice? And so if you have the ability to have more than 1-2 people, somebody coming out and being kind of the eyes and ears and kind of the calm logic to the situation can really do a lot of good. So not everyone has to be moving around with their hands.
Yeah, and I know through our training, through our alert and erase training, you're telling exactly what the TL is supposed to do. Is supposed to give direction.
Exactly.
And perfect. So hypothermia, just kind of go over that real quick, and then I want to talk about a little bit of shock. What are some ways that we can help or reduce or prevent that from going in full effect until we can get them medical attention? Do you like to be outside like I do? Hunting, fishing, hiking? If so, Onyx is the app for you. I've been a loyal Onyx user for years. It's the one app that I can honestly say I use daily. While hunting, I know where I'm at all times. I mark trails, bedding areas, feeding areas, and the list goes on. In my travels, I use it to pre-scout all the new places that I am blessed to hunt. Last year while hiking Yellowstone, I used Onyx to map out the trails and know the difficulty of each one. And here's a secret. I mark all of my favorite fishing spots on Onyx. It's been a game changer for me at work. I've used it multiple times to get in touch with property owners. Onyx has so many great features and tools, you can literally use it in your everyday life. It is by far the best mapping app on the market. And hey, it's approved by yours truly at Houndsman XP. So when you go to subscribe to Onyx, use our code HXP20 and get you a discount. So get your journey started with Onyx and know where you stand.
Hypothermia, there's charts out there that show you, how much cold water exposure you can have where you basically can't bounce back from it, and it becomes kind of that lethal mix of time and temperature. Mm-hmm. A lot of that's preventable in the mountains, especially if you dress right. I was an idiot for wearing jeans and a cotton shirt out there, and guys dress better now. There's better equipment. It's affordable. You can wear a nice polypropylene shirt that's going to dry fast. Don't matter if it gets wet. Your pants are important, but what's underneath them, dress for the environment. If you're out of your truck and you're running and it's the wintertime and it's snow on the ground and you're sweating and you take your jacket off before you go because you're going to sweat. When we talk about planning, if we had gone to that a little bit better, maybe I need to carry a pack because I'm gonna basically shed equipment, put it in the pack so I have it when I need it to put it back on. And hypothermia is a preventable process, and so it's really our lack of planning, or we got stuck somewhere and we got wet, but everything else I think is preventable in my opinion. I don't know if you feel differently about hypothermia.
Well, yeah, but I mean, let's say that I've got injured, and you've said it before, wrap some jackets around them, keep them warm. Those space blankets, man, they roll up to nothing. I mean, anybody that's carrying a backpack should have, like, literally, I'm just sitting here thinking, I mean, I've got 2 or 3 in my trunk of my car, for work. And I'm thinking, how small they don't take up space. They're small. If I was carrying a backpack, there's no reason not to have that in there. And like I said, they're very inexpensive. So I mean, you kind of got my wheels turning. Like, I know this stuff, but I've not like sat down and said, okay, I do carry matches in a dry proof case. I mean, I got a little orange. It looks like a Tylenol bottle, basically. It's got the matches and a little bit of cotton in it to start. I carry that. I do have that. And I'm sitting here now, I'm thinking, okay, what do I need to put in my kit is basically a chest rig. It's very limited on space, but I got a tourniquet attached to the bottom of it. I got that covered. I've got matches because, I learned that several years ago. Tylenol, I can put a handful of Tylenol in a Ziploc bag and stick it down one of the pouches, so I reduce the space for the bottle. I can do that. And now I'm thinking, of course, I carry a knife in my kit, and I carry one on me, so I've got 2 knives if I need it. A space blanket, I don't know that I can get in I don't think I can get it in my kit. I'm going to have to see how good I can fold it up. So what are some other things, Chad, that you may suggest? Like, let's say that I'm carrying a backpack. Let's go with a small backpack. So we got matches, we've got some type of tourniquet, and like I said, I know people, you can use a belt for a tourniquet, but a lot of belts will give where the tourniquets won't. That's something that you got to continue to keep in mind. I got matches, I got a tourniquet. I'm carrying a small backpack. I got my Badlands backpack on, so I'm going to throw a space blanket in there. What are some other things that I can do or carry that's not going to consume a lot of space, but it's going to give me a leg up?
So I think survival before I think medical, personally. I think of headlamp, a cheap headlamp in there.
I got it.
With fresh batteries, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and maybe a protein bar in there, something like that. Because if I get it, you're not going to die from starvation in a night. I carry little things like maybe a couple water purification tabs in there. As I crush an algae and you get the fresh water, get it clean. Those things aren't going to kill you, though. If you get a parasite, you're not going to die from it. It's not great to have diarrhea in the field, but you ain't going to die. I always carry stuff like a dry pair of socks. I mean, I just think, how do we survive and keep moving? The other thing I would recommend is a signaling device. So you can have a little mirror that will signal an aircraft, especially if you're really, really lost. You have a little hole in the middle. If you've seen those, you basically look at the sun, get the reflection in your hand, then you signal it towards the aircraft, and they'll find you. The other way to do that is to have a really, really thin piece of almost like parachute material, but a bright orange color. So a lot of times if you're hunting, you got some orange on you, but this basically stretches out a fabric that's big. Maybe it's a 2x2 piece of fabric, and it folds up to nothing again. You stuff it in your shirt. And that at least will allow a helicopter to find you if you're alone. And so I think of survival first. I think of fire starting second. I don't carry matches anymore. I carry just a cheap Bic lighter and usually some dryer lint, maybe put some Vaseline on it, and then throw it in a Ziploc bag. And I know I can start a fire even as bad as I am at certain fires. But that'll keep you alive, right? And so the space blanket for sure, keep warm. On the tourniquet thing, I want to touch on that real quick because having a tourniquet isn't as important as knowing how to use a tourniquet. So tourniquet use is a skill, right? It's not every time you're bleeding, you don't need a tourniquet. You need to identify what kind of blood it is. If it's bright blood and it's spurting, you need a tourniquet, okay? But your first thing it is to do not grab the tourniquet is stop the bleeding. So let's say I'm with you, Heath, and you're bleeding out your leg, you're spurting blood. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to throw my knee in your leg with all my body weight into it. And so every ounce of blood that I preserve in your body is going to save you for the hours that you're in the field with me, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I watch your blood spurt and I'm like, oh, I need to grab a tourniquet, you're still spurting. I'm looking through my kit. I find my tourniquet, still spurting blood. Every ounce that you've lost now is the potential, when we talk about shock, is leading you down that road to shock that's going to be really hard to recover from. So first thing I do is stop the bleeding. So I'm going to throw my knee into you, put all my weight into you. You're going to hate me for it. I'm going to tell you shut up, and I'll grab my tourniquet. When I find the tourniquet, I'm going to locate just above the injury. Okay, so not right on top of it, just above it. And if you have a joint in between, you go above the joint, and then you get that tourniquet on, and you're going to work that tourniquet until the bleeding stops. So you're not going to go past it. You're going to go just enough to the bleeding stops. You're going to secure it, and then you're going to cover it up. And so you can keep a tourniquet on for a few hours without losing the limb. But if you're in the field for an extended period of time, you need to constantly relook the tourniquet. You need to readdress it, because if you move somebody through the mountains, that tourniquet's going to get jostled, and they'll start bleeding on you, and you won't see it because now you've covered them with a space blanket, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're bleeding inside the space blanket, and you don't realize they're bleeding to death. And so you move them, you reassess everything. You move them, reassess. So why I bring up tourniquets is you don't always need a tourniquet.
Right.
And if it's oozing blood, and it could be a lot of blood, but you're oozing blood, first thing is pressure. Just like I said, throwing the knee into it. Elevate the limb, obviously. But then a pressure dressing, applied right, can do just as much as a tourniquet 9 times out of 10. In combat situations, tourniquets are kind of thrown around loosely because, hey, man, we don't know what we got. We're still in a gunfight. Throw a tourniquet on. In the mountains, you got the opportunity to kind of relax and say, okay, this is bad. How do we get a pressure dressing on this? And a pressure dressing is basically a ball of material. It could be your T-shirt. You tie it into a knot, put it on there. You put that knot or that big ball of material onto the wound, and then you're wrapping it so tight. It's almost like a tourniquet, but you're wrapping pressure on that point into the injury, and to get that oozing to stop. And if the thing you put on there, the material you put on there, it soaks up blood, you probably didn't do it tight enough, right? And so we got to stop the bleeding with the pressure dressing. And so on a leg, that's a hard task, man. That's a lot of meat there, right? On an arm, to do a pressure dressing is okay. You can do it. The real problem, Heath, and I don't even know if we want to talk about this because it might confuse people, but injury to the abdomen, those are really hard injuries to deal with. And it could happen to you guys. It could be a shot. You could get a gunshot to the abdomen on accident. Maybe you're carrying your rifle wrong. You shoot yourself in the stomach. Maybe you impale yourself falling down, side of a cliff, and you impale yourself in the stomach. Mm-hmm. Maybe you slice it as you're tripping down, your knife comes out. But I'm going to try to simplify this as much as I can so you don't have to be a medic to do this. But if your guts come out, and you put the guts back in your body. Yeah, I know it sounds dramatic, but get the guts, but scoop them up. And if you've gutted an animal, you know what that looks like when they come out. It's going to be hard to put them back in. You get them back in and try to close the stomach up best you can. That's why. Oh, I just almost forgot. Having a roll of duct tape is something I'd have in my bag too.
I was going to say duct tape.
Yeah, good duct tape though. I would buy the highest quality duct tape I could. If I was going to have a roll of duct tape, I'd make sure it's good duct tape. Mm-hmm. That Gorilla Glue stuff, that black stuff, man. It's that my kids use for everything when it's like $20 a roll, and they use it to like tape sticks together. But I'd have something like that because you can duct tape the stomach up, you clean the blood off, and at least get it closed up enough to move. But the stomach's tough because you need to keep basically what we call a occlusive dressing. And so occlusive means that it's basically like a hard sheet of plastic or some kind of thing that doesn't let air come in and out of. And so you want to put that on there, and you want to keep the heat from coming out of the stomach because you're going to lose a lot of heat if your guts come out. The other big one that's going to kill you, and tell me if I'm getting too deep into this stuff, but the other one's a chest injury. And so if you get a puncture to the lungs and you can hear it wheezing out of their side, they need to get that thing covered up. Mm-hmm. And so the first thing you do is cover it with their hand. They can cover their wound up, okay? And then you need to find something. If you got duct tape on you, you're a hero because you can basically cover that hole up. And the sooner you cover it up, the less air is going to come into that cavity and push their lung and collapse it.
Mm-hmm.
If they have a ton of air in there, you have to burp that thing. And so you have to eventually open that thing up every now and then and let the air come out of that hole. I don't recommend people doing field surgery out there because they're just going to hurt somebody. But covering it up, you know, if they can't breathe, you know, that lungs collapsed. And so they really need to get out of there fast. And then the last one I'll tell you is a head injury. And so, you know, knowing the guys you're with, you know, I got friends that you'd think they get head injuries, but they don't. So knowing who they are is important. Do they know where they're at? You know, if they smack their head real hard in a rock, look at their pupils. Are their pupils reactive to light? Do they know what day it is and who you are? If they start slipping, you need to be very careful about getting them treatment fast. Because if they have swelling in their brain and they have a small bleed in their brain, it's going to catch up to them real quick. And so not a whole heck of a lot you can do in the field, but recognizing it early and getting them treatment as a priority and passing that information off to the helicopter, because they might send the helicopter with a hoist and hoist them out if they're that bad, right? If they have a hole in their side and their lungs collapsing, that's information you have to pass off to the paramedics so that, maybe they do send the helicopter with the hoist and they pick them up out of the woods. You know, otherwise, broken leg, get in the truck, suck it up, take some Tylenol. I'm trying to think of other big ones. In the military, we call it life, limb, or eyesight. So if you're going to lose the limb, we're going to get you out of there fast. If you're going to lose your eyesight, we're going to get you out of there fast. And if you're dying from shock, we're going to get you out of there fast. So tell me if you want to talk about shock.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about shock a little bit because that's, you know, in my field, you know, not as extensive as you, but all these things that you're talking about, everything that you've talked about, I've seen in my job. So it's easier for me to recognize it because I see it, and I've seen it more than once, and more than I need to see it, honestly. So identifying what, you know, I think you already said it, identifying the issue and getting that information to the first responders is very important. And I know that we're not always going to be accurate with our information because we may not know. But so shock, talk about shock.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different types of shock. You know, in the military, the most likely type of shock is usually hypovolemic. So you've lost so much blood that you go into shock. That could certainly happen out in the woods. It could happen internally because you're bleeding internally from an injury to the gut or chest. And so it's a large cavity, right, can fill with a lot of blood. Or it can happen from an extremity injury where maybe you didn't do a good tourniquet or pressure dressing and there have been leaking blood. When you get to a point where you've lost, you know, 1 to 2 units of blood, let's just call them liters for the sake of the conversation.
Yep.
You're okay. Like, I'm going to be okay if I lose a liter of blood. It's going to look really dramatic, but I'm going to be okay. 2 liters, now we're getting a little more serious, okay? And you're going to start seeing changes in my behavior. You're going to see changes in my
color,
my cognition. Well, yeah, color will come next. And color will start, if you think about the body cares about the vital organs first. It cares about your brain and your heart first, then your lungs, and then your organs inside your gut. Those kind of get some love. And then your extremities are last because your body knows you don't need your extremities to live. And so if you think about it as a system, your body says, okay, well, we need the blood back because we got to protect the brain. And so it starts shutting down your limbs. And when it shuts down your limbs, you're basically, your vascular system constricts, and then your skin starts turning white. Have you ever seen somebody with hypothermia and their skin's white? Same thing with shock. They're going to be really cool to the touch. They're going to start looking kind of ashen. It's kind of like a grayish color. And that's a telltale sign. And when that happens, it's a late sign for shock too. So things are really serious at this point. And if this person doesn't get to the hospital soon, they're going to die. And if you don't make a correct intervention soon, they will be an irreversible shock. So there's nothing the doctor's going to be able to do to bring these people back. They're going to die. And we call that circling kind of circling the drain. Once that starts, you could get them on the operating table, you know, put 6 liters of blood in, or 6 units of blood in them, get them warmed up, and there's not much you're going to do for them. So that's where hypothermia comes in, right? Because hypothermia exacerbates shock. So if you're already shocky and you've lost a lot of blood and you're hypothermic on top of it, your body's working overtime now to heat your body and keep you alive. And so what we always say in the military is, you're not dead until you're warm and dead. And so even if we have someone who's dying, they're going to be warm when they come in, because we know that's something that we can do to reduce their chances of dying, and it's preventable, right? Hypothermia is preventable. The shock and the blood loss is preventable. If you're there on time, you put pressure and you treat it appropriately, it's a preventable death. If it's something inside the box, abdomen, inside the lungs, heart, like those are outside of most of our capabilities. And those are things that I wouldn't consider preventable, or they're not treatable in the field. Unless you can do a lot of crazy things for the lungs, but I wouldn't recommend, for this audience to be even thinking about that kind of stuff.
Right.
But yeah, shock's insidious, and once it starts, it goes fast. And so once you start seeing the signs of shock in their body, they don't have much longer. They need to be out there immediately. And so that's when, Heath, when you're the team leader, or you're the guy, the logical guy in the group, if you start seeing those signs, that's the time when I don't care about their limbs, right? I don't care if their leg's broken. You're going on my back, and I'm running you out of there. I'm getting you the truck, and we are going to blow through everything to get you to the hospital and save your life. But again, it's preventable. It takes time to get there. It doesn't happen in an hour. You don't get shock in an hour, unless you're just cutting their legs off and letting them bleed. It takes time. And so the decisions you make on exfiltration, on making that litter, the decisions you make on preventing hyperthermia, and good management of the blood that they are losing, you can prevent. You should never see shock in the field if you do those things correctly.
Well, I'm just sitting here, kind of going over what you've said, and even with us, like I said, we have a very diverse and unique group because of our jobs and the stuff that we're involved in professionally. We've never sit down and put a plan together, and I'm sitting here thinking, okay, we need a plan, who's going to do what, and it may be them we're working on, but we have certain people that can do certain things. We have certain people that you can delegate other stuff to, who's going to call and get rescue en route, give them our coordinates, which with the GPSs, that's simple. I was just sitting here thinking over my head, okay, so that's the first thing, is sitting down and having a plan. I'm going to put a few extra things in my truck or in my chest rig, and then I'm thinking, okay, what's next? Then, just you're sitting here saying, if you're prepared, it doesn't happen. And I'm telling myself I am prepared in my mind, but I'm not, because I don't have all this stuff planned out. I didn't have the plan in place, so therefore I'm not prepared to take care of it.
There's a couple other ones I'd bring up too, just because these are easy things to figure out beforehand. Does someone have a heart condition, right? Mm-hmm. You're probably hunting with guys that are older sometimes.
Hey, easy now, it's me.
Well, I got friends that are old that probably need to watch their heart, and if they do, do you know how to do CPR? Does everybody know how to do CPR? Do they have an existing heart condition? Do they have nitroglycerin they have in their truck? Should they have in their pocket? Because CPR is only going to do so much. And so aspirin's easy to carry if they're the guy that has that problem. The other one's diabetes, and so knowing who you're with, if they have diabetes, do they have glucose on them? Because that's what's going to save their life, right? But that's planning. Because if you have a crew of people that you're going to hunt with all season, and there's 10 of you, and you guys really trust each other, let's talk about what we got going on. Do we have, pre-existing medical conditions that we need to know about? If you do, how do I care for you? And you got a lot of capable people in your hunting crew. So, does everybody know how to do CPR? I know a few of you do, but really, you guys could teach that in the off season, because it might be you that needs it. And it's not just. Here's the other thing, man. There's a million things that happen in the woods. You get hit by lightning in the woods, you're probably gonna need CPR. And so it's not just the guy who's old and overweight. It's
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's, hey man, I was under a tree and it got blasted and it stopped my heart. And so, yeah, man, there's a million things that can go wrong. You're not going to be able to prepare for all of them. But generally speaking, you can cover a lot of them. So,
yeah. And, you know, before we wrap this up, I mean, like I said, I think having a plan, being prepared, I can definitely prepare myself better than what I am. And I thought I was pretty prepared. And now that you've added to it, I'm like, yeah, I can do that and I need to do that. Being prepared, I think that's the biggest thing. And I mean, shock, which, like I said, shock and hypothermia, you know, we can prevent. And you was talking about sticking your knee. I wanted to tell this story when you were telling it, and I didn't. So in that extreme rescue I was watching, it was a mountain biker, and he was somewhere in some third world country, and he had his GoPro on, and he was riding down this mountain, and he jumped, and when he hit, his forks on his bike, the front forks, broke and went up into his growing area, which was where that artery runs through. And he was doing exactly that blood was like squirting everywhere. Well, his buddy had enough sense. As soon as he got there and seen it, he applied pressure. He realized it wasn't enough, so he stuck his knee right down in that and was keeping the blood. And I don't want to say the time because I can't, but it seemed like it took forever to get people in there. They flew people into the top. They had to hike down the mountain to where he was at. It was a lengthy amount of time. I'm going to say maybe a couple hours. And, you know, the doctor said that because his friend was smart enough, because it was in that, you know, in the, which artery is that? The femoral artery?
Yeah, but it goes up into your, was it inguinal?
And that, I mean, you can bleed out in seconds.
So I didn't talk about that because it's so hard to treat. I mean, it's hard for medics to treat that an injury to anywhere in the hip or pelvis.
Mm-hmm.
If you're bleeding in there, there's special tools to prevent that bleeding because you have to basically put pressure where you have your hips like this. It is so hard to put enough pressure to stop that bleeding that if he saved his life, then he's a stud because we've had a lot of military guys die from that injury and they get shot in that area.
The doctors could not say enough about it, and they said that's what saved his life. But when you said that, that's what I was thinking about, that bike accident. I'm like, you know, that happens. But yeah, we're in the woods. I mean, you can fall off ledges, you can fall down the mountain. You definitely can run I've had dogs run stobs in themselves numerous times, and it definitely could happen to me. You know, like I said, I was on that cliff. Out on a ledge that if I would have fell off of that, I mean, I don't know what would have happened to me. I really don't. I mean, it literally could have killed me. I'm supposing. So all those things can happen. Being prepared, having the right stuff. I will have with our group. We're going to have a sit down and have a briefing basically on this to see who's got what, who's carrying what. And like I said, I'll have some.
You know what? I'd ask your vet buddy to do you one better. if he can get you guys some staples.
I've got them. We all carry them. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, because really to put that dog back together, and if they get sliced in the stomach, you can staple them up in a second and keep them running. But you know that. Yeah. We have. I've got a pretty good med kit for the dogs, honestly. I think I need to do better for myself. But, you know, we got talking about it. You can use those staples on your gut, too. You know, that's what I'm saying. Keep your guts in. We use staples like crazy because it's just such a big area, you know.
Yeah. So, there's some things there that we can cross-use for sure. But, yeah, I'm the Tylenol I'm definitely going to do. I never thought about that, honestly. But that's something that I will have in my kit. So, Chad, before we leave, any other thoughts? I mean, you've kind of broke it down. We've kind of went through the main things. But I think the most important thing I've taken is having a plan and being prepared. And that sums it up for me. Like, that takes care of it. Your thoughts?
No, you got it. I mean, I probably need to follow my own rules here because I don't do that half the time. But, you know, I think if this is your sport and you're into this, you know, for for a whole season, you could easily be prepared with a crew of guys, and because it might be taking care of you, man. I mean, that's the thing is, that time you take, it really sucks. They come up on you and they don't know what the heck they're doing. They don't have anything with them. And you're just looking at yourself like, man, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
But yeah, you guys got some squared away dudes, so I'm sure it'd be pretty easy to get everybody on the same page.
Well, hopefully this will put everybody else thinking a little bit forward and grabbing a few of those things here and there and having them with them or in their vehicle. And we do hunt with a diverse group. I mean, we do have some guys that are older than I am, and we have some guys that are younger than I am. We've got a whole, age. It's the whole gamut of age. We've got some truck men, that stay in the truck and take care of us and come pick us up. And then, you have the guys in the woods. So I know that sugar is one of the things that one of our guys have. We've got some with bad backs that could slip a disc or, anything in the woods. So it's kind of put me into that thinking forward, I guess, more so than anything else. So I appreciate it. And I think the listeners, will take a little bit from this and be more prepared. And that's what we want. We want everybody to have a good hunting season and have a safe hunting season for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm glad I could help a little bit. My information is a little bit dated, but hopefully it works. And I look forward to getting back up there and catching some muskie with you.
This spring, you got to get up this coming spring. We're going to plan it out, and you get a couple days away.
You're saying on your podcast, so it's going to be gospel now.
That's right. It's got to happen. It's got to happen.
Right on, man.
All right,
yeah.
Chad.
I look forward to it, brother.
Thank you for helping us teach, train, and learn, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Absolutely.